So hi, this is Steve with Field Notes again, and we're here to do another commentary on one of the films of the many that we've done over the years. And with me, of course, is
Hi, I'm Bryan from Field Notes. I'm sort of the cinematographer, and you're the director.
you're my
Can I call myself
you're
that?
my you're my the muse. I point the camera at you doing stuff like looking at star maps and things. So what was this edition that we're going to talk about this film?
Well, this was the film for the 19th limited edition, Night Sky, which was summer 2013. And this was a film we shot. I looked it up. We shot it May 2nd through 4th. So those 2 nights of the night of the 3rd, I guess the night of the 2nd and night of the 3rd in Great Basin National Park in Nevada.
It's right on the Utah border.
Yeah, northern Nevada. It was about a 5-hour drive from Las Vegas through nothing.
Yeah.
It was kind of the thing. You're from down there. I'm from the Northeast, and so seeing buttes and plateaus and things is exciting for about the first hour, and then you realize that 5 hours straight of that scenery gets to be. And we saw maybe 2 cars the whole drive up there.
Yeah, I remember driving out, and we would count how many songs we could get through before we'd see another car or another sign of humanity other than the road. And you'd get through 3 songs. So what is that, 6 or 7 minutes?
Oh, more than that. I think there was maybe
10
almost
minutes,
an hour would go by and we wouldn't see another car.
Yeah,
Once
and
we were
I
getting
shouldn't.
closer.
I won't say how fast I was driving, but after a while it was like, why are you following the speed limit? It's
Right.
just straight road, and you're not going by anybody, and it's the middle of the day. So I just drove and I don't usually drive very fast, but it was out in the middle of nowhere. So
Yeah, visibility was about several miles.
yeah, and there was no traffic. You didn't have cell service for days.
Yeah.
It was 2 hours before we got there. There was no cell service. So
I mean, if I remember correctly, there was one restaurant the whole way. We were getting hungry, and we were like, let's stop at the next restaurant. And it really turned out there was kind of one town between Las Vegas and there with a couple of restaurants.
There are a couple, yeah. The town itself near Great Basin, there's a couple of
restaurants
and a shop, and then maybe 50, 60 people live out there.
Yeah.
So this was the short little intro film we did for this, but the main reason we were out there, we had in our heads that we were going to do sort of an anti-time lapse, where we were going to capture an entire night sky in 4K and as best we could do, all night, and then we would play these. It's almost 7 hours,
Right.
And so you could, if you lived in a city and you didn't have access to the kind of crazy night skies that they have in dark sky areas like Great Basin, you could watch this, and it would be like experiencing a whole night
Right.
of stars.
And I mean, the anti-time lapse was mainly, we just wanted to shoot several hours of footage, but it's dark, it's actually surprisingly bright when you're there. You can see it's daylight. We went on a moonless night purposefully because the moon can distract from the stars quite a bit. But even without the moon, just the starlight, it was almost like daylight outside. It was crazy how bright it really is once your eyes adjust. But for a camera, that's pretty dark. So we had to kind of shoot. I think probably 10, 15-second exposures and then string them together.
Yeah. And we did all these, I'm trying to find an example. That's sort of almost what it looked like.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It looks every bit that amazing,
eye.
Right?
Yeah, just looking up, it looked like that constantly. So we got out there and we gave ourselves, we'd never done anything like this before, of shooting that much and then shooting that much content, and also not doing a lot of astral photography.
Right.
So we went out there and gave ourselves 2 nights. We flew out there and we started that night, the day we flew in.
Right.
And
the first night we set up outside of town, just south of town, not really in the park. And so that's what you see here. Like these first few shots are me just in this field south of the town, and that's the park kind of to the would have been the west of us. And then the second night we actually went and shot in the park from Mather Overlook, and that's probably most of the actual sky footage you see because we were better at shooting the footage we needed the second night after a little practice the first night.
Yeah, the 6.5 hour film, that's all from the second night.
Right.
But a lot of this, we also knew we were going to make like a shorter promo like this and do the little tricks with the stars. I don't even like that, like the tracking the stars so you'd see the constellations and stuff like that. That's a mix from both setups.
Right.
But it was really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, like you said, we were lucky to have brought like that star finder. I'm not much of an astronomer, but I was I had a star finder app on my phone and I knew the basic constellations ahead of all this and I had an app on my phone for it and was planning on using that. And of course, the moment we got out there, there's no coverage anywhere. So that star finder I was holding there came in real handy.
Yeah.
And that red flashlight was our most important tool of the whole trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's the most famous beetle in Nevada.
Yeah. On a structural level, this was sort of the edit, is that it goes from this tiny creature to bigger spaces and bigger, a larger creature than a bug, and then goes into the heavens and blah, 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 and then kind of it's circular as it comes back to this guy and then a rabbit at the end. So there's like that's how it begins and ends like small and then goes huge, like in the middle.
We had a lot of time to get philosophical.
Yeah, and we were sleepless because we didn't sleep for 3 days essentially. What else should we talk about here?
If you just want to, I guess, play through it. This is because, like I said, this was just south of town and just an empty, not a field, empty desert, I guess.
There's a water tower right around the corner.
I'd been playing Dead Redemption a lot around then, so I was sure that a mountain lion was going to jump out and kill me at any moment.
Yeah, and I've got a good story about that as we go on. And then, of course, Bryan was being sponsored by Pepsi.
Yeah, that was a product placement.
That was a product placement. We got a lot of money from Pepsi for doing that. Yeah, it was just the end of like a dirt road. I don't know. There was a water tower maybe 100, 200 yards behind us, and we just kind of parked the car and didn't know whose land it was, but it didn't say keep out. We just kind of found this stretch and thought the mountains kind of looked cool in the background.
Yeah. Although I think we ended up having to shoot kind of in the other direction, and then also the road was there, so not often, but 3 or 4 times a car would drive by and kind of ruin a couple of minutes of footage.
Yeah.
But
so back there, just a little bit was a little bit. That's like the most of the town back there. Those little lights. It was tiny.
Yeah, the store. It was like $8 a gallon for milk. They had to drive into another town and buy it at the grocery store and then resell it there.
Yeah. So this is you're setting it up, the camera there on the first night, and then that's the second night of shooting. So there's a little bit of trickery there, but
yeah. There was a lot
we
of
shot
sitting
in
there
several,
listening to "Pachwat" and then waiting 20 seconds. Pachwat.
And I forgot we had 2 cameras that we were actually shooting with. So we were shooting like our main one, and then this was like looking the other direction, so we could get these like
wider lens.
Yeah, different like.
There's a
just seeing the different stars going by and stuff, like because we knew we weren't going to get everything all looking in one direction for this film. So.
Hey Steve, what's another word for buried pirate treasure? Oh, I timed it wrong.
Wow. Booty?
That's the next constellation that comes up is Boötes. That would have been.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I paused it.
Right.
I wrecked the joke. That's all right. Those were difficult to track on there. Like you can see some of the stars are off a little bit, but it moved so quickly.
But that was actually made when we did the artwork for the books. I downloaded. You can basically get the maps of the international Sky Foundation or whatever makes these maps, but they're all in different pieces of each constellation with the stars in the background and everything. And so for the books, I took those and kind of stitched them together and then used that as a guide to redraw everything in our style. And the type and these drawings are actually taken from the books, from the actual art from the books.
Huh. I was going to say, this was something that I really wanted to try. Is this?
Yeah, that's.
I don't even remember.
Well, that's the North Star there, because all the other stars rotate around the North Star.
I don't even remember what that effect is called.
Which is why they use it for navigation.
Yeah.
Like star trail kind of thing. And then that's the Milky Way. That the blotchy blur is just kind of the line of cloud of stars.
Yeah.
M31 is a galaxy. You could actually see. And it's hard to, I mean, you don't see it in these images really, but you would start to notice being out there, you'd see different stars have different colors. It's very obvious once you've been sitting there for 6 hours. You really, I mean, it was amazing. I'm getting kind of emotional just thinking about it, because it's something, if you get a chance to do it, to spend an entire night just watching the sky go by, and you can perceive the motion. You don't see the stars moving, of course, but over the course of the night you see, where everything changes position, and you see things you never thought you'd see. You see an actual galaxy. Different sizes and colors of stars become really obvious. It gets easier as the night goes by just to pick out constellations and stars. It's actually hard to find constellations. Sometimes there's so many stars, but
there's just too much. Yeah.
It was just beautiful. And we were up in that Mather Overlook. No one came all night. We were there alone all night.
Yeah.
I kind of figured there might be some other photographers or something, because it was a really good night for it, but we didn't see anyone all night.
So on the first night, my good story on it, I have two stories, is that we, on the first night, I think you had to run back to the house that we were renting. And it was so dark out there.
There's a car headlight right there.
That's you. That's actually you coming back, because you overshot the turnoff. And so I was out there for like an hour and a half, because you were circling around trying to find out where the pull-off was. And I eventually was like, I've been out here for an hour and a half. I'm going to start, I think, walking back to the road so I can flag you down. And then I think you could just see for miles. And that's you coming around in, like, to come back to find the road.
Yeah.
And eventually you came back. But I was convinced also at that point, because I was dead tired and everything, that I was going to get eaten by a mountain lion.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, you play enough Red Dead Redemption and you develop a really irrational fear of mountain lions.
Yeah. Well.
But we didn't see. We saw a fair amount of wildlife, but no, nothing scary. No scorpions. I was worried about scorpions too. I'm not from scorpion country, but I didn't see any.
I grew up in the West with mountains and stuff, and mountain lions are no joke. So I think you were genuinely had a right to be concerned.
And yet, when we went to Shenandoah, we saw 5 bears. We saw
a lot of them,
more bears than I would have ever imagined we'd see. So we made up for it there.
And I remember the first night we were there, we stayed up all night, and then we went and slept for maybe 2 hours, and then you wanted to go do see the Great Basin National Park, so we went on a cave tour.
The Lehman Caves.
But by the time we got ready for the second night, we'd been up then, except for those couple hours of sleep, for 48 hours, and I think I wound up sleeping about half the night in the back of the truck, because it was just...
Yeah, you slept a bit, but I tried. I was trying to lay down, and I was just wired. It was exciting. It's hard to explain how something so mundane and quiet, it's just you get so philosophical, and it's really amazing just to watch it.
It's pretty overwhelming, yeah.
And you can relive that by watching the 6-hour version.
Yeah. The song in this one, I won't play it right here, but it's a composer named Helen Jane Long, I think, is her name, and it's one of my favorite songs that we've ever used in a Field Notes film.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah. Well, what else do we want to say about this?
I think that's it. Just I was going to say towards the end when the sun comes up, we were all worried about how to expose that because we're going from pitch black to daylight.
Oh yeah.
And then the moon the moon came up around 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that really messed up the exposure. Like that, some of this, that looks like it's blazing sun already, but that was just the very beginning of the day, and it was just such a big contrast for we had to do the time lapse and use we were using Magic Lantern, but what's the technical name for the exposure meter, the timer?
Yeah.
You're using the timer, and you can ramp up the exposure, but it's just hard to guess what it's going to be. So luckily we got it pretty right.
Yeah. There's a time-lapse program I call it. It's called the Holy Grail, I think, is the effect of trying to get that right is so difficult.
Yeah. Because you just never know, if it's going to be a little overcast or you have a good, we were really careful. We knew exactly to the minute what time the sun was coming up and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah. Yeah, but the other films worth watching if you have 6.5 hours to spare, or you can just pop around and
turn it on as you're going to sleep.
Yeah, and you can experience a little of what we experienced, just hopefully better slept and less chance of a mountain lion mauling.
That was what we had, and that was one of the first 4K, certainly an early long 4K video on YouTube, right? Didn't it take a few days to upload it?
Yeah, I forgot. We had a lot of, YouTube had just started doing 4K. You were allowed to upload 4K stuff. And luckily, we knew somebody at Google who alerted the YouTube team. We never talked to them, but they said, all right, this thing's coming, and it's massive. And it's... we would get almost there. It would be 95% uploaded, and then it would crap out and die. But eventually we got it up there running, and then it stayed, and we got it up on Vimeo also because they started allowing 4K. And but it was one of the other than people just putting tests up, it was one of the first, and certainly the longest 4K thing that had been uploaded, I think, on YouTube. So that was it was a first. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we put a lot of talk into that 2-minute and 19-second film, right?
Yeah.
This is fun, though. Yeah, we'll do some more, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
Thanks a lot.